All right, this is Dustin Sherman. I'm coming at you again for another episode of Forgotten Freedoms. Tonight, I've got a special guest on here with me tonight. This is going to be Sean Thorn, and he's running for U.S. Senate. So, welcome, Sean.
Hey, thank you so much for having me here.
Welcome to the studio. We're going to talk a little bit about some Alaska politics, some national politics, some things that he likes to talk about. He's a good, big Second Amendment guy, so that's why we're going to get along pretty well. Anything that goes boom is all right by me. So, Sean, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good today. How about yourself?
Not too bad, not too bad. So, you're going to run for U.S. Senate, huh?
Yep.
And tell the folks out there what party you're running with, and tell us a little bit about yourself and what your goals and aspirations are as far as getting in the office.
So I'm running as a libertarian. I really strongly believe that libertarianism holds a lot of the answers to the problems we face right now as a country. A little bit about my background. I grew up in Alaska, lived in Homer till I was 10, graduated high school in Wasilla. From there, went to college, and then I joined the Army and served in the Army primarily over in Korea. But that was a great time for me, very, I guess, expansive for my life. I got to experience so much stuff. I think I've traveled to over a dozen countries, spent a lot of time, and just seen a lot of different ways of doing things. Definitely solidified my opinion that most of the international strife that we see in the world, it's not people, it is governments that are the problem there. Because anywhere you go, people are just trying to live their lives. They're just trying to live the best life that they can. So, yeah, right now I live in Anchorage, got a wife and 7-month-old baby. They're great.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I do. She's great, sweet little baby. So, I guess kind of my reason for running is I just see so many problems. I'm not one of those people that, enjoys the spotlight. I feel like you'd have to be a sociopath to actually want to be a politician. I just don't see the type of leadership, the type of people that I feel like in any way represent what I want to see.
Right.
And so I figured I need to stand up and make that happen. So,
well, we need a lot more people that are willing to run and go through this process that think the way that you think. So I applaud you for, first of all, putting the effort forward, because running for office, any office, is never an easy thing, because you're kind of put under the spotlight, you're put under the microscope, and it's really bad for the Republicans and Democrats. The good thing about you running independent is, you're not in their vision. You're kind of running on your own, and you can kind of do your own thing. And right now with them going to the way that they're going to do the voting this year, you've got a really good chance.
mm.
So what do you think about that the new system of voting?
I mean, I understand people's concerns with it. The change is scary. There was a lot of out-of-state money that helped fund it, but I personally, I like ranked choice voting, and I liked it ever before we even begun to think of adopting it up here. My degree is in political science, so I probably later I'll talk a little smack about useless degrees, but I have one of them, so I guess I get to talk that smack. But I remember, kind of taking voting classes and learning about that, and I was like, wow, like I truly believe that's the way we should do it, because, I do understand people's concerns, particularly with the primary, but I think having choices is good, and particularly people get confused by the way that the general election works, but all it is, you have more candidates, and then you have a runoff cooked into it,
Mm-hmm.
and so no matter what by plurality, the most popular candidate will win.
Right.
I really think people are going to be happy with it. I hear your concerns. I think you're going to be happy with it, though.
Okay. So, tell the public out there what sets you apart from, say, Lisa Murkowski or Kelly Chewbacca. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing that right. It sounds like that. So, what is, in your opinion, what can you offer the citizens of Alaska and honestly the nation, really, difference between those two and yourself?
Yeah, I guess for one, I have no interest in towing anyone's line. My only interest is in doing what's good for like regular working Alaskans. And I think a lot of times, especially in Alaska, you get so much outside money that's influencing our decisions. Like just weird arbitrary things. I'll give, like, one example that comes to mind is President Trump, when he was all for the Pebble Mine, and then Junior went fishing here, and he's like, "Oh no, it's really great," and he's, "Oh, never mind, changed my mind." It's just a weird thing, and we shouldn't have to deal with that. So I think Alaska should manage Alaska. If I could press the magic button and end all federal land in Alaska, I would.
Right.
That's definitely what I would work towards, is just giving us more power to manage it. Most of the abuse of fisheries, like most overharvesting in general that we see, I think comes from pressure from outside Alaska. But we know our land, we know our resources, and we know how to manage it. So,
Well, I know one thing. One thing's for sure. We've had Murkowski's been in there for umpteen years, and we've got Dan Sullivan and who's the old guy, Don Young.
yeah.
He's been in there forever. So one of the things that a lot of Alaskans are talking about right now is how our senators have let us down, and that does include Sullivan. I mean, there's been a few times where he's backed Murkowski, and a lot of people that backed him are not very appreciative of that. So I think honestly, having another candidate in there with a whole different mindset is a plus to the citizens here in Alaska. And I think there's a lot more independence here in the state than what most people want to believe. Honestly, I think that most of the people that I know think more independently than what they do party lines. So
I agree.
We just got to get got to get some steam under you and get you in there. But I think that the one thing that people look at, and I had brought this up to you earlier, is they look at past independent candidates like Vermin Supreme and Gary Johnson, and I can't remember the woman who ran last time, but
Joe Jorgensen.
Yeah, Jorgensen. The problem that I remember seeing is some of those candidates weren't. I was surprised that they were even chosen by their party. Honestly, Gary Johnson, he was pretty serious until he started getting live interviews, and then it kind of got weird. Of course, Vermin Supreme wearing a boot on his head, that doesn't help anything. But there have been some good independent candidates out there that have won. Montana is one of them. That's where one of them won, and that was Jesse Ventura. I don't know. Jesse's kind of a crazy person, but you know what? He got a head of steam behind him, and he won Montana. So, there is a chance that anybody can get in there and win. And with ranked choice voting, who knows? We could end up seeing Sean Thorn in the U.S. Senate, and I think it would be a welcome sight, because I think he's a lot more like-minded in my head than what most people is, as far as having self-sufficiency, not having someone looking over your head every time you want to do something. There's a lot of things that we don't have as far as freedoms nowadays that we should have, and the Constitution really calls for it.
No, I agree, and I think broadly across Republicans and Democrats, basically the establishment parties right now, everyone likes to think they're pro-freedom, and except for those things, they think they know better. My personal belief is generally, if you're not hurting anyone, you should be allowed to do it. I don't believe in pre-crime. That's a lot of the arguments you see against guns. Is it's kind of like these pre-crime arguments of what you could do. Well, if you're not doing anything, then that's not a crime.
Right.
People need to be able to live their lives. They need to be able to have that space. And if we're going to make decisions, this is probably the biggest thing that separates me from any other candidates. I don't want those decisions being made by the federal government. I don't want the federal government to be enacting the things that I like. I want it to be passing that down to the states. And I think people need to understand that under that situation, they would be able to live in their state the way you want. And if there's a decision that's being made that you don't like, well, now it's your neighbor that's doing it, and then you can hold them accountable. So,
well, I think one of the stark contrasts right now with our federal government is they've literally tried to turn neighbor on neighbor. Instead of especially with the gun thing, right? Red flag laws and all that kind of stuff. You're turning your neighbor against you. So then what ends up happening is you don't trust the neighbors that are next to you to support you and to guard your property. I know my neighbors here in my neighborhood. I know probably half of them, and some of them I agree with, some of them I don't agree with. But at the same time, we all pretty much have each other's back as far as if someone comes in the neighborhood, we know it. We alert somebody if a weird vehicle's in the neighborhood, and it's not really neighborhood watch, but it's kind of protectiveness. We're watching for one another.
Community.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the way we've lost that sense of community, honestly.
I think especially in COVID and the age of the internet, there's a reason that when they do psychological research, and it tends to be the people that are most lonely are people in large cities, and that's the reason is they don't have community anymore. It's all you're anonymous in a crowd, and I think that's the core to so many problems we face is lack of community and then lack of purpose.
Right. Well, and that's the one thing, we're not having conversations like we should. I've offered to have people on both sides, or well, now all three sides, to come on my show, and the only ones that seem to have taken the I don't want to say the bait, but the only ones that have taken the offer and taken it seriously are the people on the right. So I'm hoping with you coming on, I'm hoping that we can get other people on here and we can get that conversation rolling. And my biggest thing is, and I've always said this is, I want to be left alone.
Yep.
I want to be left to my own vices. If I'm not hurting anyone but myself, leave me alone. And I don't really look at hurting myself as somebody else's business anyway. I've got tattoos, so you could consider I've hurt myself already. But when we're born in this country, we're born free. Other than we have a social security number, and the government knows everything about us anyway. And now with the age of the internet, there's been a lot of things, and I'm going to bring some of this up to you and find out what you think about it. But since 9/11, everything has gone completely the wrong direction. We've turned into a police state. Everybody knows what you're doing. Everyone can see, your IP address on your computers. It's made it too easy to surveil the normal citizen. And one thing that created that, and I'm trying to think of what this was called, they've created DHS, they've created Homeland Security.
The Patriot Act stuff.
The Patriot Act.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. Thank you. So, with the Patriot Act, they've really gotten they've scrutinized just the normal citizen. And if you relay that, use your First Amendment rights to basically rail against the government on the internet, now you're suspect.
Yep.
In fact, they just put something out now, today. It was either today or yesterday. And they were warning about, domestic terrorists and all this other stuff. And what it comes down to is they're seeing stuff going on in Canada, at least right now, and all the support that the truckers have over there. And, they're talking about doing a trucker convoy down to DC. Well, that's heightened the awareness. And so now DHS is really looking at people that are supporting that. So they're not letting us have our freedom of speech. And I don't know if it's something that, they're using January 6th as an excuse for this or what the deal was. But me and you talked a little bit at length when I first met you about January the 6th. And, I personally think that was all to do about nothing. I mean, there was some people in there that did some bad stuff. I won't say that there wasn't, but to the extent of what the media is covering, it's a joke, honestly.
Yeah, the DHS document you're talking about, the language that they had in there was you're suspect if you sow mistrust in government institutions.
Right.
And I just think that's it's so scary to me because we already have such a massive lack of accountability, and just being afraid to even question those institutions when they have quite the track record of bad deeds. It's very scary times we live in. But as January 6th goes, yeah, we talked about this at length, but that was truly one of the things that kind of inspired me to run, was just the fact that you had this kind of binary take on what happened. And I don't believe either of those things. I think the people that were let in, and that was some of the people, I'm sorry to tell you if you disagree with that, some of the people were just let in, and they kind of walked around and left. And those people probably shouldn't be charged. But if you broke in the window, if you're one of those people, then you should probably be charged. I don't think it was an insurrection, but you did a bad thing.
Well, I think there was multiple bad things. First of all, the people that did break the windows and might have assaulted some officers. I didn't see too many pictures of that. I mean, there probably was. They're having hearings about it all the damn time now. But the other bad thing was the mayor of DC completely dropped the ball on having an event there that big and not having law enforcement ready. And you could look at it two different ways. Either they wanted something to happen, or she just didn't have a clue that Trump had that much support. And if she didn't believe that, she was living under a rock somewhere.
So when you either nothing happens and you save some money, or you get a sweet PR piece. But yeah, the reaction that we've got from January 6th, I think if I had to sum it up in one word, I'd call it an embarrassment. But the reaction that we've gotten is as if all those people broke in with balaclavas and
Right.
AKs and just like completely made a ruckus, burnt the building down. That's the reaction we've gotten, turning it into a green zone, armed security everywhere, and
Well,
that's not what it was.
with the amount of people that were there, if they really truly wanted to burn the Capitol down, it wouldn't have been a problem.
Yeah.
It would still be a pile of smoldering ash. The problem was most of the people that broke in there were respectful. They picked up trash, they picked up stuff and threw it away. So, but they're, the news is not covering that. They're covering everybody that was there was an insurrectionist, and so that's one thing that if you were to get in there, I would ask you to. Now, I know that the media is we have a free media here in the country, and they're allowed to say whatever they want. But I think that there should be repercussions whenever they overblow something like this. I think that the evidence that there should be some evidence, hard fact evidence that if anything like this were to happen, they would need something to back it up. And right now, the videos and stuff that I've seen, honestly, and I've been all over the net looking for stuff, don't back up the claims that they're pushing. So tell us, Sean, what are some of your goals whenever? Let's say tomorrow you wake up in the morning and you're now a member of the U.S. Senate. What are some of the goals that you're looking forward to, and some of the things that you want to work on?
So yeah, assuming I just pre-win it all, my number one thing is I would like Alaska to just have control of Alaska one way or another. I think that we know our land. We need to make those decisions for ourselves. And that comes with so many things. We've seen definitely Deb Haaland has taken so much from us in the way of our development. And that's just some detached bureaucrat. I don't know if she's ever been here, but they live 4,000 miles away and they make these enormous sweeping decisions on our behalf that we don't want. And so just ending those practices, I think one of the biggest problems with Congress is that they've given up their power to the executive. And I think both parties traditionally have done that because when they hit that gridlock and they're unable to push their agenda through, well, now they can just, by executive order or by memorandum through the bureaucracies, now they can push through and get a little bit of their agenda through. But the problem is anytime you give the federal government the power to do something like that, someone you disagree with will turn it around and use it against you eventually. And that's every single thing. You might get that power through that you like to do your thing, but you need to think someone will use it against you someday.
Right. Well, and the good thing about, running independent like you're doing right now is you're beholden to nobody but the American people. The people who vote for you, you're not going to have, I'm sure once you win, you're going to have lobbyists that are going to be going, hey, we need you to vote this way, that way. How can you ensure the people out there that you won't be that kind of person?
I guess no one listening here probably served with me in the military. That was my track record in the military, though. I can promise you I never once did something because it would look good on my evaluation. I did it because it was right, legally and morally, and because it was right for my soldiers. I just don't care. My eye's not on re-election or anything like that. I don't care really what a lobbyist has to say to me. I will weigh their opinion, but I'm not going to do something just because they're going to contribute to my re-election fund. I have integrity, and I don't think a lot of politicians do. Quite simply.
They've proven that over about the last 7-8 years. Actually, probably the last 30 years. One thing that a lot of people understand is that most of the politicians that are in there have turned this into a career, not a public service type job. So, I will do everything I can to help you get there. I believe that, everybody's got a shot. I do like the independent platform, just because, I've seen both sides. They'll promise one thing and go a completely different direction. We have some local politicians that do that pretty much every year. So, we've had some independents here in the city run before, but none as strong as what I think Sean is. So, tell us a little bit more about your campaign and what you're doing right now. Do you got any fundraisers coming up? Do you got any certain events or anything that's in the works?
Yeah, in general, just the inside view, it is hard to run as a third party. It's both Democrats and Republicans. They both have these established machines you've seen it with all the people that are running. They can raise $500,000 in the first weekend.
Right.
I don't have that. So mostly what we try and do is I try and get out to established events. In Alaska, we're pretty blessed. We have a lot of just amazing festivals. public get-togethers, and so I try and get out there, just talk to real people, talk to people like yourself, and I really appreciate the platform to come on here and talk.
Absolutely.
Just try and get the message out there however we can. So my next big event where we're actually setting up a table is going to be at the Matsu Sportsman Show next month.
Okay.
In the last weekend. So I'll be there each day of it, and if you can make it, I'd love to see you there, and I'm sure I'll have lots of great conversations with people.
Cool. So you're a big Second Amendment guy.
Oh yeah.
So give us an idea of what your ideal gun would be. The one, I know we talked a little bit about this, but the audience don't know. So, tell us what your, what kind of handgun do you like? What kind of rifles? What platforms do you like the most? And we can go from there.
So let's see. My favorite handgun right now, I got an HK VP9. I'm pretty infatuated with that. I always love shooting 1911s. Who doesn't? I love shooting big bore revolvers. I, like most Alaskans, I carry one on my chest for all summer, get out there hunting, and definitely love revolvers. That's a great Alaskan institution. In terms of rifles, my favorite's definitely my Arsenal SAM-7 SF. I love the AK platform. I know I'm a dark sider, but I love that gun. I would love to get a what do they call them, the Galil Ace someday. I like that sort of stuff. If I could own any gun, if I could pass the laws, and assure you I'm willing to fight in this direction, I would love to have a 249.
Oh, there you go.
Miss my 249.
Well, I don't have nothing remotely close to that, but I'm kind of a big. Honestly, I like Smith & Wesson. I've got actually the gun that took second in the military trials. It's a M&P 2.0, I believe. 19 in the mag, one in the chamber, so 20 rounds. Basically, if I miss a lot, I'm screwed, and I shouldn't have another magazine anyway. And then I got my ARs. I build my ARs. I got an AR-10, and I can reach out and touch someone with that thing. Yeah,
definitely.
Go out to 1,000 yards. So the biggest problem here in Alaska is places to shoot.
It's not the weirdest thing. It confounds me that
know.
we're by an order of magnitude the biggest state, and man, there's no long ranges here. When I went to college in Idaho, and it used to be easy to find a 600-yard range, go ping some steel. Here, we just don't have it.
Well, believe it or not, I shot at 1,000-yard range in California.
Wow.
California, and they're the worst gun state in the country, and they still had 1,000-yard ranges. But I'll tell you this is the one thing that was interesting about California, was if you could shoot 1,000 yards and you were consistent and you were hitting your targets, CHP knew about you. Because what they would do is anytime that they needed, they didn't always have long range shooters on their the police force. And if you could shoot and you were consistent, then they might even call you up to come assist. Maybe not as a shooter, but as a spotter. So that was one thing that was interesting, is you got put on a list if you could shoot consistently in Sacramento. I thought that was kind of a crazy thing, but in Alaska, there's not a whole lot of public land where you can go out and shoot. And to be honest with you, even when you go out and set up to shoot, go out and do moose hunting or bear hunting, things like that. I mean, most of the ranges up here 100 yards max.
Yep.
And I would prefer to shoot a bear like 500 yards if I could, or even a moose. 100 yards at a moose isn't too bad, but they're pretty fast and they will kick the crap out of you if they can get a hold of you.
My only bear I've ever shot, I actually shot at 13 yards because he snuck up on me while I was napping, and that was quite the spook. But
I shot a bear at 20 yards with a bow, but I was in a tree, so he didn't know where I was at, thank God. That was an old black bear up in when I was in Arkansas. But, every day we turn around, they're always trying to push some kind of legislation, or they're always trying to push some kind of new gun law. And, if you were to go in there and you were my rep, I would want you to fight for our Second Amendment rights, and I believe that you would. And just talking about the kind of equipment you have, I already know that you believe in the Second Amendment. I'm not 100% sure that a lot of our senators that we have in Washington right now believe in the Second Amendment, other than for their security. Their security guards that follow them around. So
if they claim to be Second Amendment, and see a lot of people, it's on their card, it's on their flyers, Second Amendment, ask them what their favorite gun is. That's my challenge. I think there's a lot of them that'd be like, 9mm,
Well, that's like the California politicians when they trying to describe anything with an AR, the 20-round clip, and I can't remember what that guy's name was that was on the videos there for quite a while, but he was like their
ghost clips.
Yeah, exactly. Ghost guns. This is a 30 caliber ghost gun. Yeah, no, okay, dude, whatever. Shut up and sit down. We have a lot of politicians out there that know that the general public are not up and knowledgeable about this kind of stuff. And I've been shooting guns since I was in elementary school. We used to drive to school with a rifle in my back window, a shotgun in my back window, because we'd go hunting after school. I grew up in eastern Colorado, so we used to pheasant hunt, coyote hunt. We used to go out and shoot prairie dogs all the time. So it was a natural thing for us to do after school. It gave us something to do, kept us out of trouble. And since Columbine, that's all changed. Columbine really changed a whole lot of stuff with the Second Amendment. So, anytime that something happens, there's such a knee-jerk reaction to change things. And that's the one thing that I've noticed with politicians nowadays is you have one side that wants to break everything. You have one side that doesn't want to do anything. So there's no give and take there. There's no compromise. And honestly, our rights shouldn't be compromised. We should be fighting for them every day. And, putting someone like Sean in DC that'll speak up for us and speak on behalf of the Alaska citizens, I think that's probably one of the best moves we could make.
Bureaucracy only continues to exist in its giant bloated form because it's people constantly doing things to justify their own existence. They can't let any crisis go unexploited. There might be a freak accident, and they have to come up with that thing to justify why they get to keep their job, because if they don't do anything, people start asking questions. And I think there's a lot of times where, sometimes, I'm not referring to the Second Amendment in general here, but just in sometimes like Department of Transportation, I think is really guilty of this, but sometimes accidents happen. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you don't just need to do something just because. It's hard for people to accept that, but
I told you this before, and when we first met, and I meant it. I think that every citizen, whether they're gay, straight, black, white, orange, green, whatever, has the same rights. If you're born in this nation, you have the same rights that them or I do, and you should be able to express them freely without any kind of remorse, honestly, and scrutiny from the government. And, you shouldn't have to feel like someone's looking over your shoulder when you go to a range. You shouldn't have to feel like someone's looking over your shoulder when you're driving down the street. And, you shouldn't have to look over your shoulder when something's being mailed to your home, honestly. And I know I've had certain things that I've had shipped to me. Nothing is dangerous or anything like that, but, it may be something that I support, and people don't like it. The government is kind of wondering, like, it's kind of like the whole $600 thing. Have you heard that now?
Yeah.
If you spend $600, the government wants to know why.
The IRS in general right now is out of control. It's absolutely terrifying to me. Luckily, they changed that. I still disagree. I think they switched to $10,000 as the cap now, that if you have transactions in an account more than $10,000, they want an itemized list. It's not from you, it's from the bank.
Yep.
But you see it now. This is how they're, between printing money and the way the IRS is changing its policy, that's how they're affording all these things that they're doing now. And I hate to break it to anyone, like, the rich are never going to pay their fair share. It's not going to happen. They have enough lawyers to make it not happen. And so what they do is they take from the middle class. And so it might be the thing that they're not creating new taxes, but they are going to really delve into it. They hired a lot of new people, and they're going to find every single transaction you make, and they're going to get their fair share of it. Just reaching that much deeper into our pocketbooks at a time where everyone, myself included, like, times are tough right now. It's hard. We got a lot of bare shelves, and
I'm kind of working my way into that, actually. So have you watched or seen any of the articles that have come out today as far as any Alaska news?
In terms of what?
Okay, so Dunleavy just released a thing. They're putting together a task force to try and make Alaska a little bit more food sovereign or food independent.
I had not seen that.
So and actually I brought this up to you, I think, when we first met. I was talking about going off onto Fire Island and putting up a couple buildings to where we could harvest every 4 months. And it's funny because I mentioned this to someone in Juneau it's been a couple weeks ago now, and testified on this at the assembly last week. And now there's all of a sudden a task force being put together, I may not have any hand in that, but with the fact that the truckers are not getting through from Canada to here, our port's not in very good shape. When we barge things up, I think it's about time. It's actually way past time that we look into starting to produce our own food. According to the stats on the article I read, 95% of the food products that we get up here is shipped here. It's not manufactured here. So I know that in the Valley, they do grow stuff. In fact, there's one guy out there that's won like 4 or 5 times in a row for the county fair, the largest pumpkin.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last one was like 1,200 pounds or something. If they can grow a pumpkin out there that's that big, why the hell can't we grow other stuff?
And that Valley soil is no joke, but I think so. I've traveled a lot, and for a lot of the, I guess, kind of ideas I have, I look towards outside examples. And I think in terms of farming, if you look at Iceland has, the most successful banana farms outside of the tropics. And it's because they drill in to geothermal steam and they let the steam go into a greenhouse. And now they have like 100-degree steamy tropical rainforest inside. Mm-hmm. And you can't convince me that there's not somewhere in Alaska where you couldn't do that, where you could have tropical farms here, just using steam from the ground.
Well, we have the hot springs up in Fairbanks. Yep. I mean, that'd be a good place to start right there. And I think you dig down deep enough, eventually you're going to hit something hot.
Exactly.
We're right around a volcanic area, so it's not like we don't have molten lava around. So I'm sure
the volcanic area.
This is true. So, I mean, it's just a matter of using your head and getting someone that knows what they're doing.
Yep.
The earth finds a way, and it always has, since the dinosaurs were here, it's always found a way.
Yep.
But we just gotta tap into it. And, I think if you had someplace, you could actually do it regionally in Alaska. You could do it in the north. You can do it, kind of down south on the Kenai. There's a lot of places that we could produce food. The problem is our road system doesn't allow a lot of things. Our road system is in little bit of bad repair, and it doesn't take us very many places. We can't even drive to Juneau. So I think that there's a lot of things that still need to be looked at in the state. Doesn't help that our population's going down and our property taxes are going up. So there's a lot of things that need some help here, and I think Sean is probably the guy that can make some of that stuff happen.
Casinos.
So Sean, do you have a website or anything people can go to?
I do have a website, picksean.com, PICKSEAN. So yeah, if you want to go there, check it out. If you're feeling kind, you could donate. I'd really appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when exactly, for the people out there that are not really up on the elections and stuff like that, give us the date whenever they need to have their ballots and stuff in.
So it's the primary is going to be, I think it's August 16th, 14th or 16th. I can't remember off the top of my head. And then the general election will be in November. So.
Okay. Now on your website, is there a place that they can donate for funds and stuff like that?
Yep. Got that all. You can sign up to volunteer if you want. Most of the volunteer coordination we're doing, because of the challenges of a third party, we're asking people to help get the message out on social media, share to different groups and pages, and just let them know that you don't have to choose the lesser of two evils at this point. There's that's the nice thing about ranked choices. There's some different options, and I know people are scared to kind of step out of their comfort zone, but check it out, and you just might like it.
Well, I'm going to say this right now, and you can't get any worse than what we have. So take a risk, take a chance on someone like Sean, and I'm sure he's going to surprise you. But I respect and enjoy the conversation so far that I've had with Sean, and I believe that he is who he says he is. He's got some good reputation as far as the military goes. He's a gun guy, and he loves freedom. Those are the combinations that I'm looking for. So hopefully you can, look forward to having someone like Sean in there, because I know right now you've got two wings of the same bird, and both of them, who knows what's going to happen. We've seen it with Murkowski more times than we can count. We've seen it with Sullivan, and Don Young's let us down a few times as well. So, just because they belong to a certain party doesn't mean that they're going to have your values in mind.
I mean, just look inside yourself and, be introspective. When you think about the federal politics situation right now, like, do you think to yourself, wow, this is really going well? I don't think there's many of us that do, which is why I'm running. Give something else a chance,
Right. And just so you know, I'm probably going to get slayed by a bunch of people for supporting you, but you know what? We got to change the status quo. I mean, I think that, we've been doing the same thing for so many years and nothing's changed.
Mm-hmm.
And, we haven't had an independent candidate that anyone could get behind that actually they took serious. Gary Johnson was fine until he started flopping around on the stage in one of the interviews. And I was kind of like, what the hell? Why'd they pick this guy? And of course, Vermin. And there's been a few independent candidates that I really liked. And, if the name Ron Paul comes to mind whenever I think about independence. So
the legend.
Yeah. And, if you like Rand Paul, he's basically independent. So if you like what Rand has to say, I'm sure that Sean would be right along the same line. So, Rand's a pretty smart guy. He was actually in office, and I can't remember what he held when I used to live in Louisville, and he was in office then, or was just beginning to run. And I respected the guy. I mean, he was pretty solid. He was smart. He didn't sound like he was just another politician telling you what you wanted to hear. And he stood up for Trump a few times, and he's really come out against the doctor. What's his name? Fauci. Yeah. And he's come out pretty hard against Fauci. So, and he's another doctor. I mean, he's an eye surgeon. So, I'm sure he knows what he's saying, and I believe it.
That's been such an interesting situation to watch their dynamic happen, where there's so many things that you don't even have to look back 6 months. You look back 6 weeks and they say something is misinformation. Some stuff is, but there's things that there was a lot of evidence to back it. And then slowly they're forced to admit that, oh yeah, we might have been wrong. And I don't think they would have admitted that if it wasn't for so much pressure from people like him squeezing it out of them. So,
well, and that's the one thing too, is conspiracy theories over the last 4 or 5 years have started to turn into be conspiracy fact.
FOIA spoilers.
Yeah. I mean, there's been so many different things that, the media has railed against, and next thing you know, they can't rail against it anymore because it is the truth. And next thing you know, and some of the stuff that's the truth, and they've proven it's the truth, is still getting banned on Facebook. It's still getting banned on Twitter. People that have been banned on Twitter for saying certain things have not been allowed back on there.
Yeah. Even when they were right.
Yeah. I mean, look at, you could say that, like Joe Rogan, right? The Joe Rogan podcast, that was not just, that wasn't Spotify going against him. That was the citizens, but I guarantee you that there was politicians involved in that also, because they stand to lose a lot of money whenever someone's speaking the truth, and a lot of people get to see it. And with Rogan having the biggest podcast in the country, there's a lot of people listening to that man. So, I applaud him for sticking by his guns. I know he's taken a couple podcasts off there, but that's his own prerogative. That's what freedom's about. If you believe that something you said might offend somebody, or you might not have been politically correct on one show or whatever, it's your right and your call to be able to remove that.
People change too.
Yeah.
You can grow, and it's important to leave room for people to grow. I had a conversation with some people the other day about this proposal to make the federal no-fly list. And my point, which was unpopular in the group that I was in, is COVID has been hard on everyone, and you need to leave room for people to grow. There's a lot of people that have said and done things that they wouldn't normally do. And if you back people into a corner, you're just making them that much more dangerous. But it's, we live in strange times. I grew up in the age of Iraqi WMDs and Fast and Furious and all these things. Benghazi, which, that one, things happen. I get that. But the fact that they tried to sell it on that weird video that had 14 views or whatever on YouTube, I don't know. I grew up with all this stuff, especially the Iraqi WMDs. Look at what we did over that. And looking back, I think it's pretty plain that there was no intel, and just questions. I want accountability. That's what I want more than anything is.
Well, and if you notice the stuff that's going on today with Russia and the Ukraine and everything else. So, whenever Trump was in there and he tried to pull the curtain back on Ukraine with Biden and all this other stuff. And it just so happens now we're going over to help Ukraine with Russia. And there's a whole lot of really icky crap that's going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of. Yep. But I still believe anytime a Democrat's in there, the military industrial complex is flying high and mighty. And a lot of times, even with Republicans, I mean, Bush and Bush Senior, that was one of the big things too. Trump was the only one that didn't get us into a war. He hit people that he thought needed to be hit, and that was it. We were in and out. We didn't do a whole lot. Now I know that I think the whole Afghanistan debacle, getting people out and leaving our equipment behind, that was the dumbest call any of our presidents have ever made. And honestly, I think that goes back to not even so much the president, but the Joint Chiefs of Staff for saying, yeah, let's do that. They're the ones who made the call.
I don't agree with what's happened in the global war on terror. I think it's kind of sold to us in a lot of ways on a lie. I think one of the biggest things I'd like to change, if I could change any one thing, would be to take back the authorization of use of military force. And actually, right now with the Ukraine thing, I've seen a lot of people, politicians, saying that we need to rethink it and we need to give them more power. And if you don't know, I think we've invaded 18 countries using that without congressional approval.
Right.
It's scary. Like, it's really easy to send someone else's kids off to die. Like,
Yep.
I see some of these people saying, "Oh yeah, we got to stand up to Russia," and it's like, that's not you going over there.
Exactly.
I don't know. I have questions. I do believe in self-determination and that basically countries shouldn't conquer each other. What a concept. But I have questions.
Well, I look back and at least in the teachings and stuff that I learned on the Constitution. Now, keep in mind this is back in like the 90s. So we were taught that whenever the Revolutionary War happened and the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and that stuff was all written, we did this and we created the government to protect the homeland.
Mm.
That was it. We didn't sign on to go out and referee wars with other countries. If it's one of those things where we shouldn't be the referee or we shouldn't be the backup. Now, with that said, France helped us out in the Revolutionary War a little bit, but at the same time, I don't know. I think we've gotten ourselves into way too many wars too far away from home. And every time we've gotten into that war and we've helped other countries out, we haven't got much from it.
Mm.
You look at Afghanistan and Iraq. What have we gained from that? Maybe some oil.
A lot of stockholder income.
Yeah, the American people didn't get nothing from that. I don't know. I think that we need to stop funding other people's wars, and we need to stop fronting them. I mean, they look at us like we're the big brother, right? We're the ones that's going to go over and we're going to protect them, and we're going to teach them how to become a democracy and everything else. And honestly, we forgot how to do ours. We forgot how to, this is a constitutional republic, not necessarily a democracy. And we have forgotten what this country was founded on and based on. We're kind of a joke of what it should have been as far as if you follow the Constitution. I don't know. So what do you think about the 10th Amendment? Is the 10th Amendment being ambushed right now?
I'm a huge believer in the 9th and 10th Amendment both. And I think at this point, those in particular, but the Constitution in general, is basically a joke legally. And I don't like it. That's just me calling it like I see it. I don't want it to be that way, and I'll fight for it not to be that way. But there's a reason that the Supreme Court won't take a case based on that. Mm-hmm. I think that is how we get out of the situation we're in. Our population, our spirit is so poisoned right now that we need to get back to doing stuff different and giving states the ultimate power. That's the way it's written. That's the way it's supposed to be. Anything that the state doesn't cede to the federal government to do on their behalf that's not outlined in the Constitution is to be reserved by the state. And I really, truly believe that's how we're going to get out of this mess. But people don't like that. They feel like that's a loss, and they shouldn't think that way. But it's okay if California does something different, if New York does it different. As long as they let us do our thing and we don't have to pay for their thing, then it's okay. And I really believe that the good ideas will win out in the long run. But there's people, I've talked to a lot of people, out on the campaign trail and stuff, and they, some of them really get it, and then some of them kind of have a hard time with that concept. But, people like you and me that just want to be left alone, I think we're the ones that get it. And
right.
If you want to do all these weird things that you see in the news that they do in these places, then by all means, just don't hold me accountable for it and don't tell me what to do.
Right. Don't include me in your policy.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where Alaska is kind of a nation state, honestly. Mm-hmm. We're bigger than any other state in the country, yet, we're also 4 or 5 years usually behind everyone else in the country. And there's a reason for that. We're not always going the same way that California goes. Thank God. I lived there for 10 years and there's no way I would ever live in this state if that's the case. Although we are heading in that direction in many respects. I grew up in Colorado when it was still a red state. We used to, farm and hunt and fish, and we never got bothered by anything. And of course, growing up then, Reagan was my president, and I respected the guy. He was a statesman. That's one thing we haven't had in a long time is an actual statesman, someone that other countries or our allies could respect. Honestly, and you can hate me for as much as you want. Trump was a good president. He wasn't exactly the best statesman. Other countries didn't like him because he didn't take any crap off of them. But neither did Reagan. But being a statesman, he was able to talk to these people, and still that he got the respect that he needed when it came from other countries, including the Soviet Union. And here's one thing that's an interesting thing, and most people don't realize this is, Mikhail Gorbachev. I don't know if you knew this or not, but Mikhail Gorbachev was the agricultural minister before he became president. And that's one of the reasons he became the president, was because they were having such a food shortage in Russia and with the cold weather and everything else. And he was the guy that was going to solve that. And in the case of solving it, he ran for president and got it. He was their savior. And honestly, the Soviet Union is probably lucky that they had him, because him and Reagan actually had a pretty good relationship. We need that kind of relationship across overseas and stuff again, rather than all the war talk and everything else. And unfortunately, having someone like Biden, even Kamala Harris, they're all pushing for the same thing, and that's for us to go to war so that they can make a lot of money.
I mean, in general, I don't like games, and that's what it comes down to, is mutual respect with these other countries. But we're guilty of a lot of this stuff too. I don't think we're quite as guilty as some people, but you see it with the way, our banking system does some of these international deals. Like, we really bend people over the barrels with bad deals to develop their economies, and it's not in their best interest in a lot of cases. But that comes down to the same problems we face here, where it's a lot of very rich people spinning us against each other to try and push through things that aren't popular, and they find ways to make us think that they're good for us.
Well, and it's like sanctions on Iran. And, I think that country like that hates us and wants to do us harm, and death to America kind of stuff. And we finally get them, with Trump and everything. He put sanctions on them. We had a bunch of their money and stuff wrapped up. Biden gets in there and releases it to them. When Obama was in there, how much money did he take over in cash on pallets?
Give it to him.
I mean,
it's tough though. I mean, like I was saying, people just want to live their lives, and that's the hard thing with a country like that. I think Obama missed a golden opportunity there, because there was a lot of uprising sentiment when Obama was president, and he didn't capitalize on that. But most of the Iranian people have no interest in that game. Right. Same with Afghanistan. You look back, and it's not the same as here, but those people are not representative of what their country is now, and that's because of governments that are not good for them.
Well, it's interesting. You look back in the 70s, and I've seen magazine articles and stuff with, like, Iran, for instance. Iran was a lot like us.
Yeah.
They had cars, and they had women, and the women and stuff were wearing regular clothing like we would have over here. And then you get the Ayatollah in there, and next thing you know, now you can't, the women can't show anything from their neck down, and they just changed the entire culture, and it seemed like almost overnight. And, it took time, I'm sure, but for us over here, we didn't get to see all of that stuff, and it just changed overnight. And, the cultures in every country is different, and we have to understand that. And I hate to say this, but we don't look at other countries sometimes. And when we see people from another country here, we have this kind of like, what the hell is that kind of thing? Well, to them, it's normal. To us, it's like, what? And, I am kind of embraced the foreigner mentality. My wife is from Thailand. She was born there. She was raised here. But, I have a lot of friends that are from other countries, and I typically want to know as much as I can, and learn as much as I can about their culture. That whether it's Filipino, whether it's we have a lot of Samoan workers and stuff that come over here. I think I'm fascinated by Samoa. I think that it's one of the coolest places that anyone could visit. There's a lot of places I would like to go. Like, I'm originally Irish, Scottish, German, and American Indian. Obviously, I got the American part down. Never been to Ireland. I've never been to Scotland. I think those are my end of life destinations. I think is what I kind of see. But I don't know. I think that with America being a melting pot, and we including everybody, everybody wants to come here, and I sometimes I don't get it, because I've lived here my entire life, and I'm like, man, you really don't want to come here. We're so screwed up over here politically. It's like, why would you want to come here? Well, it's still the land of the free. We still have that good reputation. But we're not as free as we used to be. And it's going to take guys like Sean to give us some of that freedom back. So let's go ahead and give you some closing thoughts. And if you could tell anybody out there, anybody or anything about your run, go ahead and fill them in right now. I mean, we've talked about a lot of different things. Is there anything else that you want to add?
Oh man, let's see. I don't know. The thing I have to offer you is just no games. I want what's good for us. I want us to have control of our own future. I'm tired of being, jerked around like a rag doll about what we do with our stuff. I think we know best. And I want, I'm romantic about the idea of Alaska as the last frontier. I love the whole like end of the road kind of pioneer attitude. And I think Alaska is a place for everyone. I think everyone should be able to come here and live whichever life they want to in peace, whether that means you're a gun owner, or patriot, or whether you're, transgender, you like to smoke pot. Like, I think it should be a place for everyone to live freely. And I want us to have that destiny in our hands again.
Well, it's bad enough that we have to come up here and we have to put up with 6 months of winter.
Yeah.
And then we got bears, we got moose. You go out and we got like 4-foot snow drifts everywhere you turn. So, I think that if any place in this country should be free, it should be Alaska. We shouldn't have to have any government intervention on anything.
Shared hardship.
Yeah. I mean, we're already dealing with a bunch of crap. It's dark half the year and then it's daylight. You can't sleep one part of the year and then you want to sleep the whole rest of the year. So, I think that I moved up here because I had a lot of the same aspirations as Sean has. And I've lived up here 5 times. You can't say that I haven't put my time in here. Mm-hmm. Maybe a couple years on, a couple years off, but, when I left 10 years ago, this place was a whole different state. Mm-hmm. It's changed a bunch in 10 years and it's not been in a good way. So, we got to keep fighting and we got to keep putting people in there well, I'm going to say instead of keep putting people in there, we got to start putting people in there that have the people and freedom in mind. So with that said, Sean, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up.
Sounds good.
I appreciate you coming by, and I think this is a good conversation. I hope to have another one a little further down the road.
Definitely.
And you're more than welcome to come on anytime. And if you got any updates or anything like that, feel free to reach out and we can schedule one of these things again. And but folks, I'm going to have a couple more podcasts this weekend on Saturday with an assembly candidate and a school board candidate. So make sure you tune in for those. And other than that, Sean, I appreciate you coming by, and I'm going to go ahead and sign off.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for having me on.
No problem.